I do hope when I'm older I am that 80-year-old man, not being lonely, but actually just sat enjoying the queer spaces still, just socialising with my sort of Golden Girls bunch of friends, remembering times of past. I remember falling out of a toilet cubicle, or the time I slid down the stairs, with fond eye and sort of wiping a little tear from my eye. I remember those times, put my friend in an ambulance getting stomach pumped. Oh, the good old days.
Oh. Hello, my name is Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories they created there, and the people that they used to know. Today, we are catching up with Connor Collins, a visual artist based in Manchester, England, who is known for making artworks using unconventional materials such as diamond dust, blood, and hate speech found on social media. He first moved to Manchester to study, and it was here that he found Poptastic, a club night targeted mainly at students that played an eclectic mix of music. We caught up to discuss getting comfortable with rejection, sleeping with your school bully, and pee-shyness, which I feel is a bit of a recurring theme on this show. What's up with that? So let's play a word game.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind when I say a word. Say a name. So, Manchester.
Queer.
Okay. Poptastic.
Youth.
Dancing.
Freedom.
Well, that sets us off in a good direction. So is it fair to say then that Poptastic reminds you of your youth?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Generally, if I were to go back there now, I obviously can't go back there now, but if I were to, I think people would go "Oh, Clive, your dad's here to pick them up." So I wouldn't really blend in now, but I loved it when I was younger. It was the night I looked forward to the most.
Why did you choose the name Clive?
I don't know. I just thought we all know a Clive. I don't know a Clive, but I'll pretend I know a Clive.
I feel like Clive is an old man name.
It's like Kenneth, Clive, Sebastian.
But so anyway, so if you went there now, people would be like, who is this old man? But at the time, I derailed your thought.
Oh, no, not at all. It was for me. It was the night when I was an undergraduate that I looked forward to the most, because it was a night where you've gone to Topshop during the week and bought an extra small shirt, thinking that that's what you should wear. I look terrible in those, by the way. So obviously you see my friends wearing the extra small shirt because it'd be tight fitting. They're lovely bodies. I look like a sort of not to be cruel to myself, but like Angel Delight in a sandwich bag is what I looked like when I was wearing those sort of shirts.
Do we need to tell people what an Angel Delight is?
Angel Delight, so it's just basically pudding. It was just whipped pudding.
But it's more than that. It's like pudding that you get that comes as a powder that you have to add.
You add milk to it.
Add milk. Okay.
And there's also I've got a weird connection with Angel Delight, and this isn't slander, by the way. This is all legally out in the open. I used to know the face of Angel Delight. So Angel Delight used to have the packaging thing with a face, a kid's happy face on it with smiley face. But the person I knew then went on to murder someone, and he was still the face of Angel Delight for years later, and they only recently changed it. I'm not making this up. This is Googleable. And it's public knowledge. It's not slander at all. It's the most bizarre thing. Just this lad called Tommy, who was this very quiet lad in my school, who had the most innocent looking face, beat someone to a death with a metal pole. He's in prison now. Genuinely true story. This is completely... But yeah, he was the face of Angel Delight for a long, long time. But yeah, the sweetest face. The sweetest. Hence the face of Angel Delight.
So what do you think the baby in the sun on the Teletubbies has been getting up to then, if this is what the Angel Delight baby got up to?
They're having the best time at university, I'm sure. Because imagine being never have I ever. Like, if you literally grew up and you were either like the face of the Teletubbies, or let's say, it sounds awful, Shannon Matthews, like the one who hid under the cupboard. Do you ever hear that? Do you remember that story? The one
No.
That they faked a kidnapping in the UK, and it turns out she was just hid under the bed for 2 days. And yeah, but imagine growing up to be that person. Like, oh, by the way, I was that person. But all to be the face of literally the little Teletubby. The free drinks you get, because I use that at chat line. Like, hey, do you know how I'm the Teletubby baby son. Free drinks every night, I'm sure. Or the Milky Bar kid. If you're the Milky Bar kid, like that, I'd love that.
Oh yeah, I used to have blonde hair when I was really young, so I used to like get away with telling people I was the Milky Bar kid. Well, I think maybe it worked like once or twice, but I mean that's enough.
See, I've never looked young. That's the problem. So I've kind of grown into my face now, but I've always looked 30. Like my other half fits me when a baby. I look like a tiny accountant. Like I don't look like a baby at any point. So I'm kind of glad I finally reached 30, so I actually look my age at long last.
But like the height must give it away. If you're like 3 feet, people must be like, well, this is probably a kid.
Oh, no, I had the weight of the world on my shoulders as a baby. I had to fill my nappy and do the accounts. That's the 2 things I had to do that day.
So you started going clubbing at like, what, 7?
Well, actually, I feel missed out. So a load of my friends used to go clubbing at the age of 14, 13 and go to clubs, and they had a life that I wish I had when I was younger, because I only really got to hang out with queer people at the age of probably university, really, because I knew some in musical theatre with my gap year. I knew some in the periphery of life when I was younger, but I was too scared to sort of hang out with other queer people, because in my little area in Bromley, there was probably one other gay person and we didn't get on. Therefore, I just didn't get to know gay people. In fact, chat rooms were a huge boon. Like, it's a very dodgy area, chat rooms. But when you're a 14-year-old, if your only chance to chat to someone is someone in, let's say, Los Angeles or in Peru, and you're chatting on the keyboards, it makes a huge difference to know you're not alone, really. I used to love chat rooms when I was younger. Obviously, don't use them now, but I used to love them, just to speak to someone else who was another person my age who was having queer experiences across the globe.
So then this thing about not wanting to associate with other queer people, is it just that the pool of queer people that you had was not kind of up to par? That's not what I'm trying to say.
No, it wasn't that. It was just he was my school bully. Like, he was a really, really nasty piece of work. So unfortunately, the only other gay person. So he was gay. I now consider myself queer, but he was a gay lad. Now he said he's sort of a lovely person now. He seems to have grown up into a happier, more comfortable person. But yeah, he was a bit of a bully in my school. So I couldn't have gay friends, because the only option I had was the person who was picking other people, really.
But he could have protected you. He could have been like, you could have been like his prison wife.
Well, there's a. I may have got with him once, but we'll address that another day, I'm sure. But that was a power play on my part.
Oh, so it's like, so I don't want to be your friend, but I will shag you.
He just looked very good in the grey trackies. That's the problem.
Oh God. Okay. All right. Well, let's not talk about that too much. Let's talk instead about Angel Delight in a plastic bag. What did you say?
Angel Delight. Oh yeah. So we would always go to Top Man and buy these incredibly tight-fitting shirts, because they had to be fitted, and that makes sense. Let's say if you have a body that looks like a condom full of walnuts, you can pull off a tight-fitted shirt. But with me, like,
wait. Before you go any further, I just need to picture a condom full of walnuts. Okay, so it's like muscles rippling. Is that what you mean?
Oh, yeah, like muscles on muscles on muscles. You can then pull off a shirt that looks like you borrowed it from a Barbie. But I just look like all the shirts I wore look like crop tops. Not because they were crop tops. They just rode up, and so you spend the whole night pulling them down because they'd always ride up so much, because they clearly didn't fit you.
Okay. But so is this because you were like pudgy, or because your body length is long?
Oh, I was completely remotely average. Like, unremarkable. Like, I was the perfect spy, because I looked completely forgettable, but having the completely average body meant I wasn't an extra small. I was a complete medium, completely just run-the-mill, nondescript. And so I looked like I'd been put in like a hot wash and just gone straight out. Like everything just shrunk so much. Oh, but also I had the tightest top, but we all had the baggiest jeans as well. So there's a weird sort of triangle shape going on.
Oh, yes.
And I had incredibly long hair at the time as well. So it was cool to straighten your hair when I was younger. And instead of looking like cool and emo, I just looked like Lawrence Welland-Bowen. I just, God bless me, but I'd come from the Tudor period, going out clubbing. It was not a good look.
Well, okay. So my obvious follow-up question is there any photographic evidence of this that you would like to share?
I've got a few pictures that they look terrifying. I genuinely. So it was also the reason I had long hair is I was growing it for a photographer. So there was a relatively good photo. Well, I thought he was good at the time. I look back and go, "Oh no, you were awful." But he wanted to photograph me as Jesus, and he had all his other disciples, and he was this. You realise it's only when you get older you go, maybe a predator. But only realize you're like, oh yeah, at the time, like, oh yeah, I'll be Jesus. So I grew it for a solid 12 months. And it got to the day of the shoot, and went like, "Oh, I can't get the disciples, so I have to cancel it." I was like, "What?" Because people used to shout Moses at me in the streets because I had I had the beard, I had the long hair, and so literally the moment it got cancelled, I just shaved my head. I was like, "No, get rid of all the hair." I was like, because I hated having long hair, mostly because it wasn't very time efficient. You get the shower, and it's about a good hour before your hair's dry.
So it was cancelled. It wasn't postponed.
Oh, it was just completely cancelled. Well, I don't know if it even existed. I don't know if it was maybe a fetish thing or what. But it's only as I got older, I was like, a lovely older gay man asked me to grow my hair so he could photograph me as Jesus. And me, the 18-year-old person, went, "Yeah, that sounds normal." Way. I only realised now, years later, probably now, this moment, a trigger moment, like, oh my God, am I traumatised? But no, it was just, he did photograph me at one point.
Were you wearing clothes in these photos?
I was wearing a bed sheet. And it's a bed sheet held together with like a clip for a curtain to hold these bed sheets together, which got edited out. It's but the things we do are young. But also, I have no regrets because I know when I'm a 60-year-old man or a 70-year-old man, I want to be able to look at those pictures and go, "Oh, I used to look like that." Like, so that's why I love nudes. Like, take as many nudes as you physically can when you're younger. Because people say, "Oh, it's awful with nudes," blah, blah. No, because one day we'll look back at those nudes and go, "Oh, wasn't I pretty?" Like, because even now, if you don't like your body now, it's only going to get worse. So enjoy it now. Like, it's when I'm sort of an 80-year-old man in the retirement home, I will look at those nudes and go, "Oh, look at me in the mirror doing things I shouldn't have done in front of my shaving cream."
So what kind of things you shouldn't have done?
Oh no, I think it's always better to have regrets for doing things than regrets for not doing things.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the massive caveat here is you don't want people to be like blackmailing you with your pictures or like sharing them on your behalf.
I've always had the backup plan. So my plan is, if anyone ever threatened me to say, "Oh, I'll publish these things," because I'm a painter and artist, I'd immediately just do a series of paintings of those exact nudes and just publish them on, like, literally, here's my nudes. Here they are in all different colours, all different shades, all different paints. Here they are, and this is the person who tried to blackmail me. So that's what I do. I do a backup plan. I immediately do a whole series of paintings.
So what's the backup plan for people like me who can't even draw a horse? I don't know why I said horse. A horse is hard to draw.
The horse is the hardest thing. Their heads are so we walk into the body bit. When it gets to the face, no one can draw a horse. It's just witchcraft. Whoever's painted one, they're just witches. That's what it is.
So I can't even draw a line.
Well, in that case, because also I will say, if they threaten you, I think just get ahead of them. Just go, "No, I'm going to send them myself," because everyone's got nudes. Everyone's got nudes. Years ago, it was a novelty, but there are more pictures of people's penises now than the whole of the 1920s. So I think it's not remarkable. I think.
Are you saying that a picture of my penis is not remarkable? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it could be magnificent. I know. Also, all nudes are wonderful. All nudes are pretty. All nudes are wonderful. Like, as long as they're consensual, all nudes are wonderful. Also, the thing is, the nude is so rare to see that people owning their bodies is wonderfully remarkable. Because it also gives permission to own their bodies. So I used to occasionally pose for painters and sketching things up for new modelling, and I had lumps, I had bumps, I had a completely unremarkable, average run-of-the-mill body, like copy and paste of just a stranger body. But you leave, when you model for someone, you leave feeling so confident, so happy with yourself. But I think also, you being confident with your naked body gives other people to have confidence about their body, because generally all bodies are beautiful. It's not like a stereotype like, oh, like a throwaway comment. No, genuinely, all bodies are genuinely beautiful. I think the queer world teaches that in a weird way, because Hollywood has idea of what is a beautiful body, which is a man with ripped body, either no hair or hair in the right position, a woman with this sort of Dorito shape and then a big bum and big breasts. Well, the truth is, in the queer world, people have types. Some people like much fatter men with hair. Some people like skinny twinks. Some people like a woman who has broad shoulders and a big waist. Some people like, there's something for everyone. And the truth is, beauty is completely subjective. And I think when someone owns a nude in that way, it gives permission to realise that, oh, actually, I am beautiful. Because all people are genuinely beautiful. There's not an ugly person in the world. Only ugly people are people who have ugly personalities. That's just it. All bodies are wonderful.
Do you work for like a greeting card company or something? That sounds so cliche. Okay, so we're going way off topic.
Sorry.
Angel Delight in an extra small size T-shirt going to Poptastic. What does that night mean to you? Like, why did you want to talk about Poptastic?
I loved it because for me, it was the first experience in my life of not being the minority. To actually go somewhere and be at the time that I say I would call myself gay, I now say queer, and because I'm not gay. I generally, as I've got older, I actually realised I'm attracted to a lot more things than I realised I was in the past. But it was so nice to go somewhere and being. Obviously, I knew one gay person who was the bully, and then to go to university and walk into a room and to be utterly unremarkable to my gayness. If I said to someone, "Oh, I'm gay," they would go, "Yeah." Like, what? And it was so nice to be just so average, to be not noticeable in a weird way. It was, and also you wanted to pull off things like that, but it was just nice to be like around other people who had shared experiences, shared lives. Oh, I loved it. The music, I can't even remember the music at all, but I know I loved it. Oh, I remember the 2 rooms. There was always 2 separate rooms. There was one room that was pop music, another room was indie music. And so what you'd always do as well, if you were with one friend and your friend went to the toilet, so you weren't stood by yourself in the toilet. It was a circle, so you'd loop round the entire club, thinking like, look at my outfit. Because you'd love the outfit you wore, because you made a special point to wear the outfit you felt most confident in. And you'd walk around the whole thing, hoping someone would look at you and then come back to the toilet again afterwards. I used to love that. Never worked for me. Never worked for the slightest.
It was like a peacocking type thing, like, hey, maybe someone will hit on me and maybe I'll like snog someone.
Oh, yeah. Corner. When you have that level of drunk, you think, that's how I pulled someone. I walk quickly past a stranger and they'll fall in love with me. That's how it worked.
Well, so then, okay, so it never worked. You never ever...
That never worked, but there was the first time in my entire life I've ever experienced pulling someone without even speaking to them. So I remember this lovely lad called Paddy, and we're still friends now. We were just making eyes across one of the pop rooms a few times, and eventually I just thought I was the right level of drunk, and I thought, I'm just going to do it. I walked up to him and I just kissed him, and he kissed me, and it was very hot, very nice. But that was probably the only time in my entire life I've just like to a stranger, like, because it was the level of confidence between the both of us. Go like, yeah, this would be very fun. He was stunning as well. He had this gorgeous blonde hair, taller than me, deep voice. He's a lovely lad. He's still a lovely lad. I say lovely lad as if he's dead. He's alive. He's well in Shropshire. But yeah, it was really sort of grounding experiences there, because it sort of also rejection's wonderful. It's so important to get rejected, because obviously it's sort of, you get comfortable with it. Because if let's say I walk to someone and say, may I kiss you? And they say no, obviously that's fine. But it gives you level of actually understanding that.
Yeah. And the world didn't fall apart.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. You get rejected by many people, but eventually someone might go, oh, you're very cute. And I go, oh, thank you very much. You're very cute. And then usually what happens with that is then you kiss them once and you're friends for life. You never blossoms into a relationship. It's like most of my queer friends, it's because someone's pulled someone else.
It's like, I'm just never going to see you again. Thanks. Bye.
Oh, no. I know that's if you do stuff with them, you never see them again. If you kiss them, friends forever.
Okay, so at what point do you stop being friends forever? Like when the top button on their jeans is undone?
Oh, when you finish. No, that's what should I say? Sorry. I'm a big fan of comfortability with friends to have sex into that. I think it's wonderful, because people always assume that sex has to lead somewhere. But like, people go like, oh, where is it leading? Where is it leading? Oh, you're both having fun. You're enjoying things. It doesn't lead somewhere. Like, you don't have a game of, I don't know, like snooker and go, but where's this leading? Like, no, you're just enjoying the game of snooker. That's a really terrible analogy. I realise how phallic an analogy I've
No, but it does need to lead somewhere, and that somewhere is climax.
Oh, no, also, I think it's overrated. Climax is, porn teaches us that. Porn teaches us that, the orgasms at the end. Like, we all skip to the video, like the last 3 minutes at the end. But at the same time, all the other bits are fantastic as well. Like,
yeah,
the sheer intimacy of of it, even just like undressing. It's wonderful.
No, but like those can still be wonderful, but you're still heading somewhere. Still on the train somewhere.
On the train, that's interesting. But that's suggesting a destination. So I like, because that suggests the idea that there has to be an ending, whereas sometimes with sexual experience, neither one finishes, but it's still a lovely experience. So there's no destination. There was just falling asleep often again.
Do you not feel like you failed if you've not like made them come?
That's interesting. So that's a lot of. I know because I've got a few friends who feel this way. So some of my friends all people have different insecurities, but sexually. Some people think they come too quickly. Some people think it takes too long for them to come. Some people don't come. Some people do. And there's always been pressures because I think porn does teach us that we need to come at the right time. Whereas there's some people who their ultimate fantasy is someone comes over, comes really quickly and then leaves. That's the ultimate thing. Whereas that's the exact opposite. That's someone's insecurity. They come quickly and then they have to leave. Like there's something for everyone. Like the very fact that someone could get tied up to a wall, covered in rubber, I mean, spanked by dominatrix means that it's random. It's all shuffle mode for sex. People like all different things. So there's no sort of right and wrong. It's just whatever you fancy the night,
you
really.
should totally be a politician. Like you're just in the middle ground for everything.
Wait, it turns out I always be worried if I went to politics, I'd be like, oh no, my private life. But at the same time, Boris Johnson's had so many affairs, and yet he's the Prime Minister. I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine. Because it's one of those things where people say, oh, it would be awful if you're found in a hotel room with 14 rent boys and a load of cocaine. And I think, well, at the same time, what are you supposed to give 14 rent boys? You can't give them like Muller yogurt. Like, you just got, what are you going to share with these people? And also, it's like, how shameful, like, awful. You never had the chance. Maybe it might be wonderful.
Okay, well, like I'd really rather not talk about Boris Johnson. So can we go back? Can we go back to Poptastic? Yeah.
Literally mood killer. He's my safe word. He literally has killed. He's not only has he ruined this country, he's ruined this conversation.
Yeah, just so bleak. Okay, so Poptastic, was that then the first gay night that you went to?
Yes, it was. Oh no, I genuinely thought it was. I've just had a flashback. I've completely forgotten. The first gay bar I ever went to, I got dragged to physically. So I did it on my gap year. I was 18 at the time, and I was friends with a guy called Wayland, which again I forgot about. He was the most stunning lad. He was. You know when someone, it's awful when someone's breathtakingly stunning but also a lovely person. Like, no, that's not fair. Pick one or the other. Be stunning and horrible, or be like ugly and lovely. Don't be both. But he was lovely, and I said to him, I've never been to a gay bar, and he was a barman at a place called the Pink Rooms in Swindon, and I've never been to one, and I was like, oh no, the thought of it just a wave of anxiety, and when you feel yourself physically sweat at the thought of it, like, oh, I couldn't do that, and he was like, no. He literally, because he was also a musical theatre performer, so he was strong. He literally picked me off from the chair, put me on his shoulder and dragged me into his car, literally on his shoulder, threw me in the car and drove me to Pink Rooms. And I had a night out in the Pink Rooms. It was the first gay bar I went to. I completely forgot about that. And that was wonderful. And it seemed like New York to me, because it was bright lights and gays. But the thing is, if I was to go back now, it would probably just be 3 gay men drinking beer against the bar. But to me, it was like, the most amazing experience to actually be around other gay people. I completely forgot about that until you mentioned that. But yeah, the Pink Rooms in Swindon was the first gay bar I went to, and it was so shocking to be speaking to another gay person. He was having a cigarette, I'm having a beer. I'm like, to actually having a shared experience like that. I forgot about that until now. But also it was the prospect of pulling. So the Pink Rooms, I had a crush on a guy who had very stereotypical, like blonde hair, gelled up, as we all had it at the time. Like we had gelled spiky hair. I thought it was an angel. But then Poptastic, there was actually a prospect of genuinely pulling. There was enough people there that you might actually kiss someone and they might come back to yours, and you could share your single bed and your student accommodation. That was exciting. Like, because the terrible thing is, when you were that age, you did go out to pull. You didn't go out to hang out with friends. So now when I go clubbing, I go out, because I've got another half, but we're a non-monogamous relationship. So pulling could happen, but we don't go to pull. We go to have a good night, generally with friends, and whichever formula that comes out with, that's how it does. But when you were younger, you went out to pull, and although my friends used to call me Cinderella, which was terrible. So when it hit midnight, I'd always go home, not in a stroppy way, but just because, when you feel a level of drunk when you're a night out, it's like, oh no, I'm drunk. You know for a fact in half an hour you're going to be more drunk because the drink you just had is going to hit you a little bit later. And so whenever I felt that way, I was like, oh, I need to go home. I'd be like, bye-bye. And at midnight, it was always midnight. It was go, I'm gone home.
So you just kind of feel this wave of drunkenness that it just got
oh
too
yeah,
much.
and he's like, oh no, it's coming. Like you just like, the Monty Python scene where the army's approaching, like keeps approaching, like, oh no, it's going to reach me eventually. And like I knew I had to be in bed by the time the next wave of drunk hit me, because that way I can sleep through it. So yeah, my nickname was Cinderella. Unfortunately, I got through that. So when I hit my 30s, I'm up till like 4 or 5 in the morning when we could do that. But then lately, I think because we've all been in lockdown at home ourselves, we're our own barmen. And so I give myself very good measures. The problem is that also means I'm literally 3 steps away from my bed. So I think, oh, bed would be nice. Like, it's not a shameful thing to go to bed early. It's wonderful. So that'd be a shock system when clubs reopen.
And there's not a bed within 3 meters. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Poptastic. Let's bring it back.
Oh God, yeah, sorry.
So at that time in your life, you just started university.
Yeah, I was in my undergraduate at that time. I'm studying. I trained to be an opera singer originally.
Oh wow!
So I'm now a painter. But I used to love singing when I was younger, and then I did a gap year, did musicals and operas, and then went to a school called RNCM, Royal Northern College of Music, to study opera. And it's such good value for money to do opera because you pay as much as any other degree. But if you, let's say, English literature degree, you maybe get 2 lectures a week and maybe 1 tutorial. Whereas with opera, you get private tuition with your vocal studies, group tuition with your studies, German lessons, French lessons, Italian lessons, Pilates class was included. Don't know why. Although the teacher was wonderful. Acting lessons, obviously composition lessons. We get you spend 9 to 5. You are studying and working hard. It seems very unfair that I spent as much on my degree as anyone else, and I got so much out of it. However, not doing it, so it doesn't matter. But it was in my 3rd year of studying opera. I discovered art because I fell in love with a lad who was an artist. I didn't realise I was in love. I was completely in denial at the time. And all my friends would say, you've fallen for him. I'm like, no, don't be daft. And then after a while, I realised I was painting around him just to hang out with him because I quite enjoyed it. If you're painting, I'll paint next to him. We can hang out. And then I realised it wasn't reciprocated. He was the most stunning lad. He is breathtaking. He won't listen to this. It's fine. But
hang on. Are you telling me you owe your career to the fact that you were crushing on a guy?
Yeah. Oh, completely. Absolutely completely. But the thing was, after all had fallen apart, I realised it wasn't reciprocated, my heart broken, all that cliche stuff. I realised I still wanted to paint. And I realised I also, not only had I fallen with him, I fell in love with painting. And I've never looked back. But it was the most annoying thing. It was like, oh my God, for flip's sake. I'm 3 years into my degree. I've been working this for ages and I don't want to be an opera singer. I want to be an artist. So, oh, damn it. This is so expensive a life change. But then I realized it's better to have this life change when you're in your 20s than when you're in your 50s and then like regret it years later. I think I'm glad to have the midlife crisis now than later, really.
But I mean, there's obviously daily things you can do with your opera degree. Like it must come in handy often.
The confidence is helpful. So with opera, you get a really, really thick skin. So in your classes, let's say you're singing some song in front of the whole year group, and then the teacher will go, okay, lovely, this was wrong, that was wrong, you did this wrong, blah, blah, blah. And every lesson you have is you get told everything that's wrong with you. And at first that might be hurtful. You think, oh, because you take it personally. But eventually you stop taking it personally, you go, okay, good. You want the corrections, you want the things that are wrong so you can become better. So leaving RNCM, I left with such a thick skin that I'm not afraid of certain situations. I just throw myself into them. I'm so grateful for that. So although I'm not singing, I'm not speaking German or French or Russian or anything at all.
Italian. I
have that thick skin, which has been very, very lucky.
Oh, okay. Well, I was making a joke about and that being a silly degree. Well, I mean, no, don't be sorry. Like I was picking on your degree choice. Good. It's good that it's paid out.
Oh, it's useless in employment terms. Like no one in office says like, oh, you're an opera degree. Fantastic. Can you move this in Excel? Like no, at no point has it come helpful in any part of my life except for the confidence. That's the only thing it's been helpful for.
But I mean, like that's a pretty big thing. Like let's not underestimate.
It's the best thing to ever have. To not be afraid of certain situations. I'm an anxious person. However, I don't let that stop me. I'll still throw myself into things. It's because it's always better to regret doing things than not doing them, really. As long as they consent. By the way, that's not a push into dark things, but I'd say, like, generally, consent is king. But genuinely, it's always much better to try something than not try something, because it's better to regret doing something and not working than never giving it a go, because you'll never know otherwise.
So then, where were we? Oh, yes. So you went to university, and that's when you started to explore your gayness?
Yeah, so I joined the Manchester University LGBT Society, even though I wasn't part of Manchester University. And I loved it. It was so much fun. I spent so much money on booze, which was such a mistake. But I don't regret any single second of it, because I met so many lovely friends who challenged my views, who challenged my opinions, and educated me so much. I'm so grateful for them, because it's one of the things.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the conversation, you were saying that you didn't kind of explore your gayness because there wasn't anyone to do that with. Like, there wasn't anyone to go out with and to hang out with. Was coming out like a big deal, or was it just like, oh yeah, I'm gay now?
It was. For me, it was a very heavy moment, but it was interesting. So I learned so much about my parents, and when I came out to them. So when I came out to my dad, he's lovely. He is a big supporter. He's actually a big supporter of trans rights, and that I'm so proud of him. But he said to me when I came out, he didn't say it at the time I said it, but later on he said I was the first gay man he ever met, which isn't true, of course, because he would have met so many, one within the closet and not in the closet, that he just wouldn't have realised. It was harder for my mum, but because she wasn't homophobic at all, it's the opposite. So my mum used to work in New York, and all her friends. So she would have been a stunning sort of 6 foot. She was a gorgeous woman. She's still gorgeous now, but she was a gorgeous woman when she was younger, and she was friends with all the gays in New York. She had the nicest nightlife, but she was also there during the AIDS epidemic, and all her friends she stopped seeing them because they died, and she was just so scared that she would also lose me, because all her friends stopped going to parties because they weren't around anymore. And that was so scary for her. And it was an education for me that, one, mum had this life that I didn't know about, but also how real the AIDS epidemic was for my mum, because she obviously didn't experience it herself. She experienced it by losing all her closest friends. Just going to that many funerals was just very hard. And that was hard for me, because it was just that I realised that it was because obviously as a gay person when you're that age, AIDS and HIV is something that's battered into you. I think as queer people, we are more aware of sexual health than a lot of heterosexual people, because I think we're brought up with fear. And the truth is now, HIV is not a death sentence at all. People live long, happy lives with HIV. In fact, they live actually often happier and healthier lives than people who are negative, because they're more aware of generally all these different factors, really.
I found, do you know, like when I was at school, so I grew up in Australia, so I didn't grow up under Section 28. Where homosexuality wasn't able to be spoken about. So, like, I had the same education as all of my peers, and we all were taught about HIV, we were taught about using condoms, we were taught, taught about everything. Like, it was all drummed into us. But I found out, like, only a few years ago that most of my heterosexual friends were having unprotected sex. I just assumed that everyone was using condoms. Like, I just assumed. And they all obviously were just like at that part of in the lessons that we were having, like, oh, this doesn't apply to me. Oh, well. And so they were all out having condomless sex, which just was mind blowing for me when I found out, like, because I just had all that shame and stigma like bedded into me.
But also, I'm sure you had the same experience where I think that things are different now. We have PrEP. There's a different conversation now. But I remember when I would say to someone, "Do you want to put on a condom?" Which would be my saying, not saying with or without. It was my way of saying, "Do you want to have sex?"
Yeah.
So it's like if we're doing oral, like you say, "Do you want to put on a condom?" Which is my way of saying, like, "Do you want to now move on to other stuff?" When I was younger, I would never have considered non-condoms an option.
Absolutely.
Ever.
It just would not have crossed your mind.
But I do remember my education was so poor in sexual health, where I went to university thinking you couldn't get STIs from oral. I thought it was only sex you get STIs from, because that's basically what they taught us. It was really bad. Now I think back to it. And I think actually I think that's not just me, because I notice a lot of my friends will shame people for having unprotected sex but beyond PrEP. They say, "Oh, but what are the other STIs?" But I think, but you don't use condoms for oral, because you're just as likely to get gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis from oral as you are from unprotected anal sex. So why are you shaming these people for this? I think very odd and very hypocritical.
Yeah, I find the whole PrEP thing really fascinating. The way that different people respond to it being available now. And like there is the generation that lived through AIDS and HIV and has that trauma, who are just like, no, like I'm just not gonna do that. I'm just not gonna risk it. I'm just not gonna do it. And then there are those like people who are really young who have just never ever lived in a world where HIV is a life-limiting condition.
That's it. We need to be. That's the one thing we do have to listen to the older generation about this, because we're lucky to have. I've got a few older friends, but I know for a fact if the HIV epidemic and AIDS epidemic didn't happen, I would have so many more older friends. But of course, they don't exist because they passed away. And I listen to my. I've got a role model. I won't say his name because I don't know if it's. But he's a real role model to me. No, I will say his name's Phil, and I listen to him because he lived it. He understands it, and it's like I call myself queer, but I also understand that he's lived through a generation where queer was a hate term used against him. And so although I identify myself as that, I understand that also that's a term of trauma for him. But we have to listen to the older generation, because they can explain to us how lucky we are to have PrEP, how that is a blessing. Like PrEP and PEP is an absolute blessing. But
I guess what I'm saying is like that there are some people who are like, no, it's too good to be true. I don't want to believe it. Even if there is all the science, if there is everything to back this up, I'm not going to trust it, which I find fascinating.
It is interesting, yeah. But then also we all have parents in some weird way who don't take ibuprofen and things like that because they think it's weird things. So, I think it's education's key. Education is absolutely key. The more we can educate people about undetectable means untransmittable, that PrEP is revolutionary, can change that. And PEP as well is so important. PEP works so well, as long as it's taken within 48 hours.
And I should say, like, it's absolutely their choice what they do with their bodies and their lives.
Oh yeah, completely.
I just find it interesting when you consider different demographics, the way that they've responded to this drug.
Well, I'm sure if I was around at that time, I'd have a completely different opinion to what I have now, because I'm so lucky to be in a non-monogamous relationship now, where we can both be on PrEP, sorry, and it's just that extra line of defense.
Yes,
but also if my partner or I did become HIV positive, we also both have an understanding of like, okay, we'll obviously go on our antiviral drugs, and in a few months, hopefully we'll be both untransmittable, and life will move on. It won't be a death sentence, it won't be a trauma. It'd be difficult, because I think there's so much stigma still towards people who are HIV positive, which is horrible, because we should know better, in my opinion, now.
Can we just move left a bit and talk about this word queer? Like, so I have this same experience as you, where queer was never used like as a word to batter me with. Like, and so I don't have that same emotive response when people use that word, which means I'm comfortable with it. But I was thinking, like, I was trying to think of a word that would be an equivalent for me, and I can't think. Like, the ones that would have been used against me is like faggot and pufter. But I kind of don't mind if someone calls me that. I'm like, all right, yeah.
It's weird, because when someone calls you a puff, you're like, not only they're homophobic, like they've been homophobic since the 90s. Like that's old school homophobia. Like, it's actually, I can remember being shouted at someone.
Kind of like sweet and homespun.
Yeah. But I can remember I was walking with my other half and a few of my friends to Canal Street, and a good lad shouted puff. And we're just so thrown, because I've not heard that term since I was 14. Like, but I think you're right with queer, but also queer, I think, because the idea is that it's a broad spectrum idea. Queerness can be trans, queerness can be a gay man, queerness can be an intersex person.
Yeah.
It's also just, I think it's welcoming, because I like the LGBTQIA thing, but there's more letters to add. There are more letters.
Yeah.
And so I think the term queer means that it opens conversation, because there could be 15 queer people in a room, but none of them anything alike. But if you want to know more, you can ask them, and they can then have the discussion. Whereas I find gay is a very binary, I like men, that's it. But then it's the whole thing of like, okay, what is man? Like, what is your definition of man? Because one person's definition of what a man is a different person to another person's definition. Whereas I think queerness has a discussion. I think it's about how we used to be years back in the Roman age. You would never define someone by their sexuality because it was such a weird concept to do that. People just like what they like. And I think hopefully we're moving towards that now, where people say, this is my partner, or this is my partners, or I like guys who look like this, or I like people who behave this way, or it's whatever you personally like or don't like as well. That can be a definition as well. Some people aren't sexually interested in anyone. I think that's part of the discussion as well. Like, they are still part of our community.
So yeah, which is why I like queer as a word, because it's a bit of a catch-all, and it's like it's much easier to say as well. But yeah, like, can you think of any words that you would just be like, that just make you recoil?
That's a really good question. That's a fantastic question. I hate the word mask.
Oh.
I think it's...
Well, I hate it as well because it's usually used to other me, but like...
Yes,
but it's been used within the community rather than as something outside of the community.
I find it's with the word mask carries with it so many ideas of heteronormativity, but also ideas of what a woman should be, what a man should be. It might be something that'd be lovely in maybe a few decades' time, because some people can identify themselves that way, when it's no longer carrying back to the idea that this is right, that I am. There are times like when there was Quentin. Do you know the Quentin Crisp, the author and lecturer? When he used to go into the gay bars, even though he was part of the time where, if you were a gay man, you would have your painted nails, you'd have your soft hair, you'd walk in a Gentile way. But when he used to go to the gay bars, he would not be welcome because the men at the time had the builder's shirts, the leather, and they were like, no, we don't want you because you're part of the past. And I that's what I associate mask with, is and almost often a time of internalized hate, that I need to be strong to be welcome, or strong to be accepted. Whereas the truth is, in my opinion, it's the femme people who are the strongest, because they walk through the world not welcome and harassed, and yet are still intrinsically entirely themselves. And that takes so much confidence and strength, more so than being a white, muscular, masked guy. You're welcome anywhere. But to be the little...
Do you think that's confidence? Like, I mean, we're going like way off topic, but I think, like, you know, I am not mask presenting, but I don't think I'm not mask presenting because I have made a conscious decision to be like, this is who I am, but you can like take it or leave it. I think it's just that I'm incapable.
Well, that's exactly it. People are who they are, and it's like Quentin Crisp was beaten all the time, but because people think, oh, why need to change? But he couldn't. He was a square brick in a circular world. And no matter what he did, he would always wake up and be that square brick. And that's it. People can't help who they are. In my mind, they need to stay exactly who they are and stay where they are and wait for society to form around them, because it's society's job to catch up. They shouldn't change for society. Society should catch up with them, in my mind, because that's how the world gets better as well. It's the outsiders who suggest things aren't right and will stand their ground, and eventually that one person will stand their ground, and then someone will join them, and then a few more will join them, and a few more, and eventually becomes a movement, and then eventually becomes normality. That actually, no, this was like women's rights. It's so bizarre to think there was a time when women didn't have equal rights. And think, in fairness, women still now aren't paid equally, aren't treated equally. But there was a time where women didn't even get a chance to vote, which is, you think it's insane, but there was the few people who stood against it, then a few more, and a few more, and now that's normality. Because it is the outsiders who stand their ground to make the world a little bit better.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, do you think that was something that I mean, not that I'm picking entirely on Quentin Crisp, but that he was like, oh, I'm not going to conform, I'm consciously not going to do that? Or do you think it was just that it was something that he wasn't able to do?
I think he had no other choice. He just was always this...
But he, like...
queer person.
I'm sure he had some homophobic things that he said that kind of...
Oh, he has some nasty comments towards the AIDS crisis, which he regretted, which is quite interesting. So he was quite a proud person. So he said some flippant comments which were not nice, were not good. But when he passed away, he actually organising it within his will to donate a huge sum of his fortune to AIDS research and HIV research and HIV support. But he'd been too proud to confess that, because I think he was too proud a person to say, actually, what I said was wrong, because he was wrong what he said. It was not nice. It was ignorant.
There's lots of ignorant stuff. Like in 1997, he told the Times that he would advise parents to abort a fetus if it could be shown to be genetically predetermined to be gay.
Yeah, he had a lot of, because he thought he was an abnormality. And the thing is that sociologically at the time, people would have seen that across the board. It was probably about the same sort of time. The Sun did an article saying that they found the gay gene and therefore we can abort before it happens. Which the truth is that I think as the society's moving on, we're realising being one thing or the other is actually a normal thing. Like being 100% gay or 100% straight is actually the indescribably rare thing. Everyone is on for some form of spectrum, and it's just whatever you like. But he had a lot of internalized homophobia. Yeah. He did a lot for us, but I think it was also, you can't expect everyone to be perfect as well, because I think it's one of those things with role models. Eventually, as years go on,
and like we need to also be aware that the context of the time that he was living in, like it would be very rare for him not to be self-hating and homophobic. Like that's kind of the way that you're raised and the things that you're taught to think and believe. But I guess that's what kind of brings me to that question. Like obviously we can only speculate because we can't ask him. But if it was up to him at that time, like if he could conform, if he could fit in, if he could pass, would he have done that? And did he present the way that he presented because he kind of just had no choice, like he was incapable of?
I think the square brick in a circular world. I think some people, because I do wonder if I wasn't praised or insulted by what I said and did and behaved, how would I say and do and be? Mm-hmm. I don't know, because the problem is, as much as I try and be my entire self, I am still in a world where I've grown up monitoring my actions, my movements.
And monitoring them to a different degree depending on the setting that you're within.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's intrinsically for queer people. I think straight people, if they would label themselves as straight, have exactly the same level of, I can't do this, I can't have a floppy hand, I can't drink that beer. Because I'm sure there are so many straight identifying men out there who would love a white wine spritzer.
Okay, this is like, I read the headline and so I've decided I know everything about this. But like the thing about men, like heterosexual men not wiping their butts
because it's gay,
enough, because they think it's gay.
If I would immediately dump that person, I'd have a hose attached to my tap and just spray them until they left my house. Like, no, leave.
It's just incredible. I mean, what are they going to do when they find out about bidets?
Oh, I love a bidet. Oh, there's a little holiday when you sit down on that. It's wonderful.
I hate it. But I think it's because I'm not patient enough to get the temperature right. So
it's always
I'm
a shock
like,
system.
All right, this will do. And then it's freezing. And then I'm like, fuck. Yeah.
God, yeah. But that's the thing, because I've always considered my judging myself or my masculinity or femininity be a thing, because I'm a queer person in a straight world. But I just forget that all these straight men have the exact same level of anxiety. They hang out with friends and wait for their coolest friend to laugh first before they laugh, so they know if their joke's funny or not. They will laugh at sexist comments because that's the norm, but the truth is they actually want to go, that's not quite right.
Yeah.
And they want to wear comfortable clothes, but instead they have to wear their logo shirt with their jeans and their black trainers because, straight clubs, that's so weird. In queer world, you go to a bar, you wear what you want. In straight world, if you're not wearing black shoes, you're not coming in. I'm like, why is that a rule? Like, that is so strange. You like, why do you have to wear black shoes?
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I do like about queer spaces, where you can just wear what you like and you're welcome.
So speaking of queer spaces,
Poptastic, sorry.
Shall we circle back? Okay, so the questions that I was asking, you had just started university, you'd been going. So, like, first impressions of that bar were around the freedom, like the fact that you were so ordinary, the fact that people were kind of overlooking you. What else did you love about it?
This sounds really weird. I still remember the smell in a strange way. The smell of sweat, spilled drinks, smoke from the smoke machine. That sort of yeah, because it's interesting because none of us have smelled that for so long because we've all been not clubbing for so long. But I think we can all remember the smell of our favourite places, like our favourite bars we go to, the smell of stale beer, of that. It's like almost like a soggy beer mat smell. That sort of stays with me. I can still remember the smell of Poptastic. I used to, also, it was just when you walk in, there was supposed to be stamped your hand, and they'd be flirty and chatty, and it's the welcoming experience. It feels like home, like their family, like they're waiting for you to come back. Like, oh, it's you again. Oh, it's just so lovely. No, I absolutely adored that. And also the tension of the hope, the deep hope that you get a toilet cubicle, because there's nothing more awkward being in a club and peeing next to someone else, and it's. It's that if you see the cubicle door open, like, yes, I've timed this perfectly, and you go to the cubicle and you have a nice relaxed wee. But like, if you're there and you stood next to someone and you're just counting down from 10, like hoping eventually you wee, and you're stood there not weeing, just with your penis out, just like praying to eventually wee, like, oh my god, am I ever going to wee?
Let's talk about pee-shyness. So are you saying, like, so was the pee-shyness restricted to the club where you were around other gay men, or is it something that you just experience anywhere?
Oh, no, I think anywhere, but particularly, because they're interesting, if you go to just a pub, you have pee-shyness because just general pee-shyness. But when you're in a gay club, I'm just thinking, oh my god, what if they look at my penis? Like, how's my penis looking? As if you need to, like, present it beautifully, like, on a nice little silver tray with a bit of garnish, like, a few, like, cherry tomatoes.
But also, like, who is interested in a flaccid penis? Like, who's going to look at a flaccid penis and be like, oh, brilliant.
But that's the logic, Bray, but not when you're a 19-year-old guy peeing next to someone who's cute. The worst is if they're cute. If they're cute, you're like, oh my god, you're the cute guy, you might look and it might be terrible. Yeah, I do the worst is when you're stood there not weeing, like, oh my god, are they going to notice I'm not weeing?
Yeah,
and then you just think, do I start making sound effects? Do they think I am?
Do they think I'm here hitting on them because I'm not peeing and I'm just standing here with my cock in my hand? But like, so have you overcome pee shyness as you've gotten older?
Count down from 10. That's my thing. 10. 9 in your head. No, not out loud. If you did it out loud, you'd be very weird. Like Thunderbirds, I'll go. But in my head, that's how I do it. And also, it's a great place to also realise that if the guy you fancy doesn't wash their hands, like, no, I'm not pulling you. You don't wash your hands. Like, no, I can't be with someone who doesn't wash their hands. Oh, that's something I completely forgot about. The lollipop people. I forgot. The no spray, no lay. Like, I used to love them. Like, you pay £1 to pee because you feel so awkward. Like, thank you for passing me the hand towel. I'll give you £1 now, so I can dry my hands. I forgot about that.
This is how I overcame my pee shyness, because I was so stingy and didn't want to pay £1 every time I went to the toilet. I would hold it in until I was absolutely busting, and then when I got in there, I had no choice.
Spraying everywhere like a fire hose, just flying around the room, just
out of my way.
But that's also worse, because also, if this is so grotesque, I'm sorry, listeners, you might have to edit this out, but like when you pee too hard, it's like the spray, and it's like almost like the smoke that appears, and like, oh my god, you think, oh my god, am I splashing the person next to me? This is terrible. Oh, but the best is when you're by yourself and you've got the big urinal with urinal cakes, and you could move the urinal cakes along, like with your wee, like you move on, like almost like a game of hockey with yourself.
Okay, you've lost me now.
Have you never done that? So if you have a big tray urinal, and there's urinal cakes, there's like 5 or 6 urinal cakes, and if you pee hard, you can move the urinal cake along, like a little game with yourself.
Oh, hang on. When I first moved to the UK, I was always really shocked that everyone would call it urinal instead of urinal, but you've just called it urinal.
Oh, I pronounce things wrong all the time. I pronounce almost everything wrong. Yeah, so I say urinal. Urinal sounds American to me.
Urinal sounds so weird, but yeah, like that's how people pronounce it here.
But do you know why we've got so many different terms for the toilet? We've got the bog, the loo, the crapper. It's because in the UK we were very coy and bashful about saying we're going to the toilet, and so every sort of couple of years, or a few years, maybe half a decade or so, we'd come up with a new term for it. But then eventually that term would become rude. Like, it would actually become, because we use it so much, it's clearly the rude term, and then make a new one. So we'd literally every sort of decade we'd have a new term, like the crapper, the loo, the bog,
Oh.
the restroom. So yeah, and eventually we had to keep rotating them. So yeah, that's why we've got so many random words.
I feel like there hasn't been a new one introduced for a while.
No, we need a new one.
Should we brainstorm?
Powder room. I like the powder room. That's what's good.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's too it's not direct enough. Like the bowel evacuation room. Does that work for you?
I mean, it sounds so beautiful.
I just like when words describe what you do in that, like what it's for. I don't like when it's all kind of like frilly and like powder room. Like you could be putting
powder room
makeup
must
on.
sound like you do cocaine or something like that. I'm like, no, just what we.
Oh, I feel like it's that big floofy like talcum powder thing. That's what it makes me think of.
Oh, if they had that, I'd stay in the loo all the time. I love just you finish a wee and they go puff, 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 and there's lovely big powder puffs. Be glamorous as anything. And have another sort of dressing table to have somewhere to sit and weep. With a gin and tonic, when you have a hard night, just sit on the dressing table, just cry. But be glamorous, lovely sort of like silk negligee. Wonderful.
So we're drawing a line under this. We haven't got any words that we are going to enter into public lexicon about toilets.
Oh, the cottage. I suppose it's a big part of queer history, especially the cottage.
That's not a new word. You're changing the subject.
Sorry.
Okay, so Poptastic, did you just stop going when you stopped being a student?
I think I got too old, yeah. So I started going to cruise eventually. But also during my 20s, I went through a period of just not going clubbing anymore. I just felt too old. And then weirdly, when I've hit my late 20s, early 30s, I've been clubbing, well, obviously not now, but when we could, I've been clubbing more than ever. It's like I get a second wind and I'm really enjoying it. And I think the big factor is actually having the self-confidence of not caring anymore. So when I was younger, you'd be insecure, wanting to pull, feeling insecure about my body, blah, blah. But now when I'm in my 30s, I'm like, well, I'm not an 18-year-old anymore, so I don't have to care. Like, I'm not going to be this young, beautiful person, so I'm just going to enjoy my dancing. And I enjoy myself so much more clubbing now, really.
It's interesting though. So you don't feel like they're, and maybe this is because of the nights that you're going to and the clientele that they attract, but like you don't feel like there's you're experiencing any ageism when you go out.
I think I do feel I stand out. If I went to GAY, I feel in Manchester, I feel I stand out as a 30-year-old, because it is very much younger students with their shots and WKDs and things like that. I don't mind that. I'm quite enjoying getting older. But I do hope I eventually age into that lovely sort of wrinkled gay man in the floppy hat sat in the corner of the pub. I want to be that man. It's lovely. I think it's not bad.
Shall we practice then? Can you say "in my day"?
Oh, in my day, like genuinely, all this was fields. There's Poptastic, all fields. They're all bumming, but all fields, all fields.
Right. So Poptastic, you just kind of grew out of it. So do you then remember the last time you went there?
No, but I remember one of the last times where I was wearing cowboy boots that were really slippery on the shoes, and Poptastic used to have a set of stairs that would go about sort of 7 stairs down, then loop round to do another 7 stairs down, and they'd be there with the person who'd stamp your hand. And I slid down the first set of stairs on my arse, scratched my back, bashed against the wall, but the momentum meant I then also slid down the next set of stairs. And obviously the person went, "No, you're drunk, you need to leave." But thankfully, I've got a thing called dyspraxia, which is basically dyslexia, but for your coordination. And I stood up and went, "How dare you? I'm dyspraxic." And which meant they let me in, which is fine. I was drunk. I shouldn't have been in there. But yeah, dyspraxia saved me a lot of times. There's been times when I've rolled into a black cab and bashed my head against the other door of the black cab, clearly because I'm so drunk, I can't stop myself. And again, it's like, "How dare you? I'm dyspraxic." Again, journey home, absolutely fine. Dyspraxia, although it was a pain when I was younger, as I'm getting older, it gets me out of a lot of sticky spots, really.
So there's a handy little tip there for anyone listening. If you're incredibly drunk and trying to style it out, tell them you're dyspraxic.
I do have dyspraxia, by the way, if you're listening. I do genuinely have it, so I can say it.
Oh, so you're not giving everyone permission to use that?
No, I don't think you can just walk into a certain thing and like, "Oh, why do you not have that?" "Oh, so I've got the palsy." It's fine. "Oh, okay, jump in. That's fine. Do you want a lager top?" I know we can't. Yes, no pretending.
Oh, okay, fine. So if we're going to cast our minds back and think about Connor squeezing into an extra small t-shirt, looking like Angel Delight in a plastic bag. If you had an opportunity to talk to him and give him some advice, what would you say?
I'd tell him nothing. Absolutely nothing. Genuinely, I think it's much better to be surprised. I always wonder with the whole thing, if I go back in time, I would tell myself blah, blah. I always find that it could potentially be a form of like a self-hate. Like, you don't like who you are now, so you want to change your past. I'd much rather be happy who I am now and accept I made mistakes and good things and bad things. Oh, I tell him nothing. It's much more fun to find out on the way, really. Oh, and one thing I would say is probably get a haircut. That's the one thing I probably would say, get a haircut. But other than that, it's much more fun to be surprised about what's to come, because it's so exciting for things to be new. All these new experiences, when you first meet another gay person, and when you first kiss another person, when you first go clubbing in a ludicrous shirt, when you discover that Thompsons will ruin your shoes for life. Like, you go in there in white shoes, you come out with black. All these experiences, it's much more fun to discover on the way, I think.
Did you ever go to Poptastic, or do you have any memories of Manchester's Canal Street that you want to share? Well, if you do, please get in touch. I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories from lost queer spaces. Go to lostspacespodcast.com and find the section Share a Lost Space and tell me what you got up to. As always, there are bonus points for embarrassing photos. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as Lost Spaces Pod. And whilst you're at it, go give Connor some love. His website can be found at www.connorcollins.com, and he is also on Instagram and Twitter as ConArtWorks. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I have been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the coming years. You can hear the first single, which is called Well Grown Boys, and is playing underneath my talking right now on all good streaming platforms. If you like this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on Apple Podcasts, or just told people who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen too. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.